Lynch for a coastal area site plan review for a new single-family dwelling on map 29, block 585, parcel 5, of which Frank DeLito is the owner. Applicant has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And for the record, my name is Thomas Lynch. I'm an attorney with the law firm Lynch, Trimbicki & Boynton, and my office is located here in Milford at 63 Cherry Street. And I have the pleasure of being here tonight with my clients, Frank DeLito Jr. and his son, Frank III. My clients are the owners of the property at 24 Bayshore Drive. And we're here before you tonight with an application for CAM, Coastal Area Management Site Plan Approval. This is the last step in the administrative process that we've gone through for approval of a new residence to be constructed on this site. So just a little bit of background. 24 Bayshore, it's located in Zone R5 in the Bayview section of Milford. The current house is a single-family residence. It's more of a cottage consisting of 5 rooms and some 800 square feet of living space. And it was built in 1930. It is located on a 9,224 square foot lot in the R5 zone, so it's noteworthy that the lot itself is zoning compliant. However, we did appear before the Zoning Board of Appeals back in December of last year. We had applications for side yard and projection variances, which were granted unanimously by that board. So the house that's being submitted to you on these plans is a result of those variances being granted. So the proposal in this application is for a 3-level residence to be constructed on site, some 4,300 square feet. The house is the plans are just absolutely spectacular, designed by Jim Deno, who's with me here tonight. I also worked with Jim over the last year relative to the adjacent house owned by the Lombards, John and Lisa Lombard at 28 Bayshore. So again, if you've driven down to that area and if you've seen the construction, the large house that's currently under construction is the one owned by the Lombards at 28 Bayshore. The DeLito's residence is the house to the left of that. As I said, it's a 3-level residence, 4,300 square feet in living space. It's set up with a in-law floor plan because of the 2 families living together, Frank Jr. and his wife, and Frank III and his family. So David, I think, has the first slide is just the side elevation. We did have some discussions with Steve Harris and David as to calculation of the what the zoning office would consider to be the height limitation on the house. So the plans that are before you tonight basically were the result of an in-office meeting between myself, my clients, and Jim Deno, reaching an agreement as to defining the midpoint of the roof line to calculate the 35 feet height restriction. David's memo, which he'll go over in a second, notes that the building is at 35 feet, so it is zoning compliant. The floor plan, if we can go to the floor plan, it's typical with many of the houses that are being constructed on the shoreline. It has a garage with an elevator structure on the lower level. The main level has 1 master bedroom. It has a second bedroom with a kitchen, a great room overlooking a deck looking out to Long Island Sound. The second level of living space has another master bedroom, 2 additional guest bedrooms with baths, a smaller kitchen, and a living area adjacent to the deck. And lastly, the 3rd level has the building mechanicals and storage. There's a small area set aside for a home office on that level. The elevation of the house is compliant. The property is located in flood zone VE13, so the first level living space elevation will be set at 15, and that is compliant with the FEMA regulations. So other than that, that's our presentation to you. As I said, this is the last step in the process to get approvals for the building of this house. My clients have lived in Orange and Milford for many years and look forward to building their dream house, and this is it. So, thanks.
Thank you. David, if you would speak to this and also comment on what is the ADU and the size of the ADU within the building, if that is how it is going to be looked at for our zoning purposes.
There we go. The applicant is constructing a new single-family dwelling of 35 feet in height. Variances were granted in November of 2024 for side yard setbacks and projections into yards. No adverse impacts to coastal resources are anticipated. The city engineer has noted that a concrete apron, curbs, and sidewalks need to be shown on the plans. This should be made a condition of approval. There is no ADU. It's just a large single-family house.
Correct.
Okay, it's just sort of confusing that it was spoken out as an in-law.
It's the vernacular, meaning there's another area where Frank Sr. and his wife will be living within the confines of the house, but it's not technically an accessory dwelling unit.
Okay, but there is just a second kitchen, and how is that different, David? Just so we all are on the same page.
Hit your mic.
We don't have a limit on the number of kitchens that could be in your single-family house. So typically in larger homes, we have seen wet bars that are in effect kitchens. If they want to designate, some bedrooms there as, for the visiting grandparents and having their own little kitchen or kitchenette there. We have master suites in houses that have kitchens in them. We don't consider them anything other than what this is, a single-family house. And it's also on the upper level, so ADUs typically wouldn't be there. So.
And if you would just then explain when before the ADU regulation came into play, there was what we called the grandma suite or the and there were requirements that if you were going to have a second stove, that it had to be compliant with those regulations. It had to be a blood relative. It was the craziest thing, but.
And there were also size limitations, because typically those ADUs, although within the confines of the existing house, were in effect almost separate apartments. So they would have, again, a separate kitchen, usually a little living room, a bedroom. That's really not what's going on here. It's just a big house.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, I'd hear a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Quish. This is regarding 24 Bayshore Drive, which is Zone R5, excuse me. I move to approve this with the following conditions, which I'll state in the memo. The petition of Tom Lynch for coastal area site plan review for a new single-family dwelling on map 29, block 585, parcel 5 of which Frank DeLito III is the owner. The conditions that will be made is that the city engineer noted in his letter, concrete apron, curbs, and sidewalks would need to be shown on the plans.
And can I be heard just on that? The revised plans with the apron, curbing, and sidewalks were sent in already, so we're happy to have that as a condition of approval, but the plans have been revised.
Thank you very much.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a second. And is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, would you please call the vote? Oh, is there a question? No, if you could just call the vote.
With the motion. With the motion.
Mr. Alling,
With the motion.
Mr. Anderson, Mr. Hirsch, Mr. Collegian?
With the motion.
Mr. Mortimer? Mr. Sadi?
With the motion.
Chairman Kuish.
Also with the motion.
All right. Thanks so much.
Next order of business is a public hearing closed by August 19, 2025. Vote by November 3rd, excuse me, 2025. 1357 Boston Post Road, Zone R5, petition of Chick-fil-A Inc. for special exception site plan with CAM for a new fast food restaurant with drive-in on map 89, block 812, parcel 42, of which B33 Milford Crossing LLC is the owner. Applicant has the floor.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Nice to see all of you. My name is John Nuff. I'm an attorney with an office at 135 Broad Street here in Milford, and I'm here tonight on behalf of Chick-fil-A Inc. As you noted, Mr. Chairman, the property is located at 1357 Boston Post Road. It's owned by Bridge 33 or B33, and Jose Navarro, who's a representative of the property owners here with us tonight. I think I may have heard you say we're in the R40 zone, but anyway, we're in the shopping center design district, of course. And also with me tonight is John Martinez, who is from Chick-fil-A, flew up this morning from Atlanta, as well as Joey Fonseca, who's a professional engineer from Bowler Engineering, and Ethan Shucksy, who is our traffic engineer. Many years ago, we represented Walmart on this property when Ceruzzi was first developing it. Shortly after that, Chick-fil-A was trying to get onto this property. They have desperately wanted to be in the city of Milford for many, many years and has targeted that particular parcel for many years. And finally, they've been able to work out an arrangement that facilitates the addition of a Chick-fil-A in a safe and convenient location. We wanted to walk you through all that, hear your comments. We have been before the police commission. They were fine with the design. So without, I don't want to belabor this because we do have our experts, and John Martinez would like to address you from Chick-fil-A, and then we'll have Joey walk you through the site plan.
Good evening. Yes, John Martinez. I'm a development manager with Chick-fil-A. Been in this role for about 11 years, but I've been associated with Chick-fil-A going on almost 24 years. So pretty familiar with Chick-fil-A's here in the Northeast. Oh, sure. 5200 Buffington Road in Atlanta, Georgia. As you can tell, I don't really have a Southern accent. I'm born and raised in the Northeast, but I've been working for Chick-fil-A for a while now. I think it's important to know how Chick-fil-A, first of all, operates. So Chick-fil-A, unlike a typical quick service restaurant and franchise operation, we self-develop the stores. We enter into the lease with them. We pay all the hard and soft costs. When we're ready to actually start selling chicken, that's when we'll bring an operator in. But that operator or franchisee gets one location. So unlike a typical franchisee that may get an area or multiple stores, pretty much you get one location. And so it's really important for Chick-fil-A to make sure that location is going to be successful, because that individual, that operator, only can have their income come from the store. They can't even be a silent partner in another business. 100% of their income and attention is to that store. And we feel that's what's made us successful over the years. And as we've developed, we're very particular on where we go. You can see we don't just put them everywhere. We're a privately held company. And so in doing so, we have some flexibility, so we don't necessarily need to meet some sort of a Wall Street goal for opening stores. We can be selective. So here in Milford, we've been looking for a lot of years. And our attorney mentioned that we've been actually actively negotiating the site since 2019. And the reason why it's taken so long is because we want to make sure that when we go in here, it's going to be a success. So we've looked at this site for lots of reasons, both traffic-wise, environmental-wise, and we finally got comfortable moving forward. One of the things that really, I'll say, kind of changed during that negotiation was COVID. COVID really certainly changed the industry, certainly changed Chick-fil-A. And if you recall, when all the restaurants and dining areas were closed, we had some crazy good sales at a lot of our facilities that had drive-throughs. And what we realized was we had to improve that drive-through. So I want to assure you here in Milford, the facility that we're looking to build has all the latest bells and whistles with the drive-through to handle that. So similar in some ways to what was just opened up in West Haven, which I guess is the closest Chick-fil-A to this location. We'll have dual lane drive-through. We'll have both the canopies for order taking. And we've designed the site so that we'll have approximately 36 cars can be in our drive-through without even spilling into our parking lot. And so with that, we feel that's it's a very well-designed site. Chick-fil-A has looked at some of the issues that have been raised. Certainly, they're not news to us. I would say that the two largest issues that have come to our attention was having some of our parking on the other side of the drive aisle. And I guess there's an intersection right when you first come in that's a little off-centered, for lack of a better term. That's an existing condition. And so we've prepared some striping plans, which our engineer will get into, that shows how we propose to at least better identify the traffic flow that should go through that intersection now. It's a little bit of a free-for-all, and we'll show that. As well as anywhere we're going to have our pedestrians crossing, we'll have crosswalks. Even the main one will have a blinking light associated with it to really identify that. Is our expectation that the parking lot between ourselves and Barnes & Noble can handle Barnes & Noble traffic and our customers. We would have our employees, our team members park on the other side of the drive aisle, but we can get into that here in a little bit as well. The other thing that we realized as we visited the site is there is not very good pedestrian connection between the bus stop and this facility. I'll be honest with you, it was unnerving to me multiple times to see people walking down the drive aisle. Some of them were pushing shopping carts, some have suitcases. And so it was important to Chick-fil-A to put a sidewalk from the bus stop and all the way into our site, and then into I'll say the Walmart parcel as well. We feel that's a really big enhancement to the safety of this facility. So with that, I'll let our engineer come up and can talk more specifics on the site.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Joey Fonseca. I'm a project manager with Bowler. Our address is 50 Washington Street in Westboro, Massachusetts. Before I start, I do have a presentation file on USB. I'm not sure if that's possible. I thought I was going to be able to connect my laptop to the TV, but I'm not sure if I can share this with you. All right, so good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Joey Fonseca. So just a fun fact, I actually, with the former principal development lead that was with Chick-fil-A, I remember walking the site back in 2019. For me, I know a lot of the communication has been with Chaz Evans in our Connecticut office. He had a conflict tonight, so I'm here to discuss the site plan, discuss the proposal with you all, but happy to see this project. It's been many years. Happy to see this project get submitted and happy to present that to you all tonight. So let me get this started. So as you all, I'm sure you're well aware of the site. This is the existing Milford Crossing Shopping Center. In blue outline here on the TV screen is the overall property boundary, which is approximately 46.5 acres within this entire plaza. Our site location is the parking lot in front of Barnes & Nobles, which is close to the Boston Post Road entrance. It's located on kind of the northeast corner of the site here, kind of circling with my mouse pointer here today. So that'll be the area that we'll be discussing for today's proposal. But just a couple notes, as far as access goes on the existing site, there's a full access signalized intersection here on Boston Post Road that allows access into the plaza. There's also another full movement access drive off of Rose Mill Road. Again, this is also signalized as well. So those are the two main access points to the plaza, and of course this parking area for the Barnes portion of the site has a curb cut. In the next plan we'll kind of show it more zoomed in, but does have a curb cut access into this parking area. But just a couple highlights: sites located within the shopping center design district, and of course, you know, there's many stores, Marshalls, Petco, Walmart, Staples, Barnes & Nobles, all within this large plaza. I'm going to flip to. So this is just kind of a zoomed in portion again, kind of where we're highlighting the area that we'll be discussing today. It is an existing parking area, so the current improvements are, you know, basically just some small landscape areas, some light poles, obviously some pavement striping for parking. There's existing stormwater infrastructure within this parking area that gets conveyed into the existing overall system for the larger plaza. But that's really it. Again, it's just a plaza here. There is a sidewalk, as John had mentioned earlier, that comes off of Boston Post Road and kind of ends, and I'm showing it here with our cursor. And I only flag that as we get into the site plan, we'll see some of the sidewalk improvements that we're proposing, and certainly our traffic consultant, when he's up after me, that can kind of go into more of that in more detail. But as I mentioned before, the curb cut to get into the parking area is up near the existing Barnes & Noble building, and there is actually a circulation road along the back of the building as well, but it's basically the only entrance into the parking lot that leads in. So with that, I'm going to flip over to the proposed site plan. So as you can see here, right out of the gate, we're proposing a new curb cut along this interior ring road. So there'll be two cuts. The existing curb cut that's over near the Barnes and Noble will remain. We're proposing a new curb cut closer to where the drive-through and the Chick-fil-A building will be. So with that curb cut, there's a drive aisle there, which then leads us to where the building location is. This is an LE prototype Chick-fil-A, so it's more of a rectangular building with the drive-through on the south side of the building. So this is an end delivery door here for this building. The drive-through entrance is on the northern side of the lot here. So you've got a dual drive-through, full dual drive-through approach from start to meal delivery or the meal fulfillment area, which I'll get into more. But so this does allow, as John mentioned previously, this current prototype does have all of the newest, I guess, improvements that Chick-fil-A has made, and as he mentioned, we learned a lot post-COVID. A lot of that was due to how efficient we can make our how efficient Chick-fil-A can make their drive-thrus. And this proposal, this site plan, these features that we're presenting today includes all of those to, again, bring an efficient route, an efficient system to Milford, certainly to this location as well. So again, a dual drive-through approach here. It's counterclockwise. So as you enter, there are two canopies within the drive-through. There's kind of these darker shaded areas here. There's a canopy over what would be the ordering area, and then as customers progress through the drive-through, they'll eventually make their way towards the meal pickup area, which is the canopy just south of the building here. And again, that's the meal fulfillment area. That's where the meals will be delivered to the customers. So again, a canopy above it, it keeps the team members, it keeps customers out of inclement weather when they're ordering and when they're getting their meals delivered within the drive-through. The proposed building is a 5,100 square foot building. There'll be 90 seats interior to this building. We are also showing some seasonal exterior seats on the north side of the building. We're showing approximately 16 exterior sort of patio seating there as well. The plan also proposed a trash enclosure. It's located near the drive-through entrance. And again, it will be, as we get to the landscape plan, it will be shielded with some landscaping, but it's in a location where the trash truck, which is front-end loaded, can access, pick up, and exit the site without traveling through parking spaces here. Just high level, the plan's also showing some EV parking spaces. We're showing two level 2 chargers in this, or sorry, 3 level 2 chargers within this parking area here that I'm highlighting with my mouse. So these will be dedicated to EV charging, and then some of the parking and the end islands for the landscaping along the main drive aisle as you enter the site, enlarged to allow for some additional landscaping in the parking area to kind of enhance that as well. To the right of as I mentioned before, to the right of the drive-through, just along the main plaza entrance here, we are proposing an extension of the sidewalk, and as I said, our traffic consultant can get more into that and the overall pedestrian circulation, but we are proposing where the existing sidewalk ends to extend that sidewalk into the site, again, to give that more of a pedestrian-friendly approach to the restaurant, which currently is lacking for the plaza. This is just a utility plan, might be a little bit hard to read, but essentially the sewer, the drainage, and the water connections will all be internal to the plaza. We'll be tying into the existing infrastructure for sewer. We'll be tying into the existing main water service loop that surrounds the plaza. And then the electric and gas will certainly get coordinated with the electric companies as the project proceeds here. For stormwater, again, there's existing infrastructure on site today. We'll be enhancing that through additional catch basins, a water quality unit to enhance the water quality of the stormwater as it's being conveyed to the existing system within the mall. So it's a small improvement, it's a small reduction in impervious coverage, but it is an important reduction. It's 400 square feet of less pavement out there, so there'll be less stormwater being generated from the site, but it also gives us the opportunity for additional plantings for landscaping around the building, around the drive-through, as well as interior to the parking, which lacks out there today. So with the landscaping, we are proposing approximately, flip to that page, 14 total trees between canopy, evergreen, and ornamental, and then over 250 additional shrubs, tall grasses, perennials throughout. So certainly an enhancement in landscaping over the existing condition that exists there today. I know that there have been a few comment letters, and there's been a lot of utility coordination on the site. Happy to answer any questions if we want to get to that level, but I know that Chaz and his team had responded to a lot of those questions. But just as a high level, just kind of want to just present the site plans here. I can turn it over to our traffic consultant to kind of run through some of the traffic improvements that we're proposing here for the plaza, as well as a pedestrian route as well. Just one last item on the lighting. We are proposing, a lighting plan was also submitted with this application. We are proposing 5 additional light poles in the parking area, 3 additional within the drive-through, and then the canopies will all be, we'll have recessed cans within the canopies to downlight those areas, as well as building-mounted lighting as well through here. All dark sky compliant and shielded as well. That being said, I'll turn it over.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions of this gentleman now, or should we let the presentation go on full and then ask questions at the end? Etan.
Yeah, I just want to be clear. How many curb cuts will there be?
So there will be, to this parking lot, there will be 2. So there's one additional curb cut being proposed. So 2 total.
Right now, there's already one entrance in and out, and Correct. You're going to propose another entrance in and out.
Correct.
Thank you.
Full movement, correct.
Thank you.
Okay, perfect.
How you doing? Ethan Chikoski. I'm with TPD Engineering. We're located at 275 Broad Hollow Road in Melville, New York. I'm a professional engineer, registered in the state of Connecticut. Worked on hundreds of traffic studies, but specifically with Chick-fil-A, myself and my company, we've worked on over a dozen traffic studies looking at existing locations, both sort of the older models with the single lane drive-through, as well as looking at some of these newer models with the dual lanes, and the drive-through demand and parking demand associated with those. We've looked at sites in Connecticut and New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania, so very familiar with the drive-through operation. Joey explained it pretty well. We did come out to do a traffic and parking review at this site. Our main concern, as was really mentioned earlier, was this main dry access off of Boston Post Road. I'm sure the board is familiar, but as it exists today, as you enter from US Route 1 and go down into the site, there's a little bit of a lack of traffic control, to say the least, as you approach this sort of misaligned intersection. When we were doing traffic counts out here, what we found was, and I'm sure this aligns with your experience in the field here, is that most traffic is really going left or coming along this access road and making a right turn to go back up towards the traffic signal. So primarily we wanted to really just make sure we're providing better traffic control within the intersection, working with the alignments that we have, which are not always ideal. So primarily, as you're approaching the intersection, it's adding left turn, right turn, striping, pavement markings, a yield control as you're making the right into the site, and then trying to better direct traffic to go through either to the Walmart or make that left turn and go towards Chick-fil-A or possibly the stores down to the east. One other thing that we talked about very early on is that we'd be using some parking on the south side, or not planned south, not actual south, on this side of the drive aisle, primarily for team member parking, so employees for the restaurant, so that they would be stationed down here, and that we'd have a safe crossing for them, as well as patrons of the Barnes & Nobles here on the other side. So one of the things we look to add is a crosswalk with, it was mentioned, flashing lights. We call it rapid flashing beacons is the sort of official term. So we'd have some additional signage and protection for those pedestrians. We're also proposing a raised crosswalk. So sort of I like to personally think a better version of a speed hump, in that it sort of ramps up in this area, and the entire crosswalk width is at a raised elevation. So it just provides a little bit better pedestrian awareness and safety. In addition to that, as John from Chick-fil-A, John Martinez mentioned, one thing we were concerned about was pedestrian access off of Boston Post Road. There is a bus stop up here off the roadway, and we think it's better to provide a dedicated sidewalk, and we did notice some people walking down this drive aisle here. So it actually ties into an existing sidewalk here, and it runs along, I'm not sure you can see my cursor there, but it runs along the drive-through lane and drive aisle, and then it provides a path sort of, we consider the safest route to go back towards the Walmart or to the Chick-fil-A here. So we think that's an improvement to the pedestrian safety. So, as I mentioned before, the main concern here is just to provide a little bit more control and give a little bit more direction to customers as they enter into the shopping center as a whole, but especially with the addition of the Chick-fil-A. We also took a look at the parking. We're out for several weeks, did a lot of parking counts with the Barnes & Noble right here. Based on our calculations, we looked at both IT projections, which is the Institute of Transportation Engineers. We did projections for the addition of the Chick-fil-A, and then we also looked at some specific data related to the Chick-fil-A and what their parking demand, given their number of team members and the typical demand you see in this area. And we basically found that, during their peaks, which is really like a weekday lunch and a Saturday peak period, we could accommodate all of the parking demand for both the Barnes & Nobles and the Chick-fil-A in this site, and then while also using a bit of the parking on the south side here, primarily for team members. I'm happy to answer any additional questions. I really just wanted to highlight the traffic improvements here. And note that, based on our studies out here, we could accommodate the parking demand. I guess just one other note that I would say is we have submitted to OSTA, the Office of Traffic Administration. This is a change to an existing certificate, so it requires us to submit traffic studies to them for an administrative decision. And then, as was previously mentioned, we also went to the Traffic Commission here, and we got approval from that board.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. Can you take me back to the crosswalk for a minute?
Sure. This one here?
Yeah. I'm not sure I heard it correctly. You said it was elevated?
Yeah, the idea is to put in a raised crosswalk. So,
how elevated?
Only a few inches. You basically ramp up on either side, similar to speed hump, but so sometimes called a raised crosswalk, sometimes called a speed table. It would just raise a few inches.
And how wide would it be?
A minimum of 6 feet wide. I think this one looks to be about 8 feet on this conceptual design. It's flat in the crosswalk portion. So it sort of ramps up, and then in the 6 to 8 feet crosswalk portion, it flattens out and then it ramps back down. So just to provide sort of this additional, alertness,
So
that
how
there's a pedestrian
is it
crossing there.
contoured to get so that water will drain off of it?
Correct, yeah.
So someone's going to walk on, it's contoured like this, so the water runs up both sides?
Right.
People would walk down the middle, I guess.
People walk down the middle, it would just flatten an ADA compliant path.
Okay, thank you.
So I wanted to share with you, just as an aside, that when I come in from the Post Road, I always take the second left to avoid that first left now. So in other words, first left that's closest to Barnes & Noble, I take the second left because I want to go deeper into the lot to go to, say, Staples, for example.
Sure.
So just as an aside. Something was mentioned about the bus stop, and I wondered if you can just put on the record once again how the bus stop would be affected by this project.
Yeah, sure. So there is a bus stop right here along Boston Post Road. We're not necessarily modifying that bus stop, but what we are doing is providing a pedestrian sidewalk connection into the site. So currently, right now, it sort of ends about where it's a little hard to see, but about where those turn lanes are, right where my cursor is. The sidewalk just ends right before you get into the shopping center. So the idea is we really want a safe passage for people going down to Walmart or wherever else in the center. They really walk down that drive aisle, which is not very safe. And so we're going to proposing to provide a sidewalk that would basically connect into the center. And it would provide an ADA compliant path from the street. Sorry about that. It's just can't go back here. How do you go back? Oh, it's there. Wrong arrow. Sorry. So the idea is just to have a dedicated sidewalk from the street and the bus stop to the center.
And also wanted to ask you about the seasonal nature of the business. How does it change over the course of the year? Because I'm thinking you know, during the holiday season especially, if folks are out shopping and there's a draw for Barnes and Noble and they're in the plaza and they're eating, how is that going to affect parking and access to the building?
I don't know, and maybe John can speak to this better. I don't know that Chick-fil-A is particularly busy in Christmas time. I mean, I'll say that, you know, when you put a restaurant like this in a shopping center, you do have, you know, and there's research to show that you have a lot of internal trips. So you have a lot of people who are already going to the center to shop or whatever else, and then they go to the Chick-fil-A. Now, based on the parking in the overall shopping center, we are meeting the parking requirements based on the size of the shopping center, the size of the buildings, and the size of this restaurant. So based on that code and the ITE, I believe there's enough parking overall to satisfy demand even during a peak holiday. And I think you would probably get a lot of, you know, errant trips, you know, from the.
I certainly understand what you're saying, but it's also a confined, designated area as opposed to the entire shopping center.
In terms of walking there from a different stores?
In terms of parking and accessing both Barnes and Noble and Chick-fil-A.
I mean, yeah, one of the things we're trying to improve is to add these crosswalks so that it is more accessible from other parking areas, you know, to get to this restaurant.
Anticipate overflow then?
There would be an overflow of parking to the south of the drive aisle. That's why we're proposing the additional crosswalk protection. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, the fire department raised a couple of conditions, which is normal, but one of the conditions had to do with the turning radii around the islands in the lot. Can you clarify what exactly their concern was and how that would be addressed?
I'm going to ask Joey to answer that because I think I know Bowler was coordinating with their office and they prepared the turn template, so I'm going to ask them to answer that if you don't mind.
Sure.
So, unfortunately, I don't have the exhibit as part of this presentation package, but our office did respond to that comment to provide a new truck turning exhibit that showed the revised curbing to allow for a fire truck to access the site and circulate and exit. I know that was prepared because I believe that comment, as well as an FDC, identifying the FDC connection and the two proposed hydrants were also a comment that was received from the fire department.
Okay, thank you. So this plan right now that we're seeing, that meets their specifications? Or does it need to be adjusted?
This plan reflects the adjustments.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Another question I had was about the outdoor seating, if that's protected at all?
So typically, with all outdoor seating for Chick-fil-A's, there is a patio railing fence. It's an aluminum fence. It's pretty standard across all the Chick-fil-A restaurants. That will be installed for the patio area. There will be, a gap in there, obviously, to allow customers to enter it, but they do want their patio areas to be enclosed.
Okay. And then the last question I had, for now at least, is to do with the turn out of the parking lot. So when people are leaving the drive-through, they do what looks like more than a 180-degree turn to go right if they're turning right out of the lot. And they're also going past a crosswalk that goes directly in front of the drive-through and potentially past a crosswalk that's crossing that main driveway, which can be quite congested. So my question, I have a number of concerns about that, but the question I wanted to ask was whether that turning radius was investigated as appropriate, because if you have a larger vehicle, it seems to me that it would be quite difficult to make that turn in a safe way.
So I believe it was evaluated. We do have quite a bit of space there between even the outside drive-through lane and the exit onto that ring road there. I will say, as part of the operations for this, we are showing the dual lane here. Really, the operators have the ability or the flexibility to adjust the drive-through traffic during their peak times, during their off-peak times. During their off-peak times, they may only be running the inside lane for ordering and meal delivery, and there won't be any cars, in that outside lane. It'll be almost kind of serving as a bypass lane. During their peak times, they will have, cars on the outside they'll be delivering. I'm not sure if you all have visited a recent Chick-fil-A, but, during the peak times, they will be delivering food to that outside lane. Part of the team members that are on site, that are trained within that drive-through lane, they will stagger the vehicles exiting if there are 2 lanes. So you're not going to have 2 cars exiting at the same time. They will stagger those. They'll deliver those meals at different times to avoid that conflict. So there will be team members that are acting to sort of guide guests as they exit the drive-through, and whether they're exiting straight or exiting into that ring road and then exiting the site.
Okay, so thank you for explaining that. With the 2 lanes, when both are operating, can both lanes turn right to go out that exit? Because it looks like there's only 1 lane exiting that's going onto the main driveway that I forget the name of that street, but between Rose's Mill and Boston Post Road.
Correct. So that's a full movement. It's only a single lane that's going to be turning, whether you're approaching that ring road and turning a left or right. It's only a single car that can be queued in there. Like as I mentioned before, they are staggered, so those 2 cars would be merging into that exit lane and then exiting into that perimeter road, and then exiting the site from there. So it is just a single. It's a full movement, but it's just 1 lane in, 1 lane out.
Thank you.
That.
No more questions for me.
Good evening. Can you go back to the photograph before that showed the traffic overlay? No? There we go. I like that island put in there because that separates traffic between, and that's always a very difficult area to navigate right now, as you may know. And so it looks like you put that island there, and it's going to, on the right side of the road as you're going in, as you're entering the plaza, that's, I think, TD Bank. So that's going to direct traffic, TD Bank traffic, and I think there's Golf Galaxy there too?
Correct, yeah,
Right.
this is the TD, and then the Golf Galaxies in the
Okay,
bottom
so it's going to be 1 lane, and now there's going to be 2 lanes. There's a straight lane, and then there is a left turn lane. Is this going to affect traffic or motorists going towards the Walmart? Because it looks like you're directing traffic towards Chick-fil-A and away from Walmart.
Yeah, the idea was that left lane and this additional striped, dotted sort of striping here.
Yeah.
Is to direct that left turn lane so that they know to go all the way to the right, and we'll have to have some signage, left turn to Chick-fil-A, straight for Walmart. It's to direct them through this intersection just because of that misalignment there. The idea is that this through lane would go straight down to Walmart, and the left, sorry about that. And the left lane would go towards the Chick-fil-A. Sorry, this is going.
Right, so clearly the left lane goes towards Chick-fil-A, goes toward Barnes & Noble, goes towards Petco. I get
Correct,
that.
yeah.
But then that center lane, I can't tell if that's intended to direct traffic towards those other businesses, or if it's directed traffic towards the Walmart.
The intent is towards the Walmart.
Mr. Chair? I just want to ask a question for clarification, for Eitan. That's not actually an island. That is a striped area of pavement. Is that correct?
Striped area of pavement.
Yeah. And for clarification, you've made actually no structural changes to anything coming into the site other than adding paint. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct. We're currently proposing pavement markings and signage. We're not showing any proposed curb line changes or addition of an island there. That's definitely something we can investigate. I'd be happy to. But right now, we're working with the geometry we have at the intersection and adding additional signing, striping, and signing and striping.
So, when I met with your team, I suggested working on the geometry, and that wasn't done. So really, this is a Band-Aid. And then the second crosswalk is just a painted crosswalk. It's not the same as the first one with the...
We were not proposing an elevated crossing or a speed table, as you know it, in front of the Barnes & Noble at this time. Again, happy to go back and talk to the team about it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Good evening to you.
Bob, can I interrupt you? I'm sorry. I'm now more confused. So the red triangle there to the left, that's not elevated, or?
I'm sorry?
The crosswalk's elevated. That little red triangle there with the stripes on it, that's just
Currently
paint?
proposed as pavement marking.
Just paint?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Bob.
Thank you. Good evening to you. We're working with some problems. Internet's not working well. Your cursor's not showing up at all on the screen, so it doesn't help us. But I have some questions, and we'll just keep this schematic up there. I can, from where at least where I'm seated, we can see there's two blue markers. If you look at your diagram, what do those two blue blocks indicate?
So those are pedestrian guidance signs.
Okay,
So they're smaller signs, really.
Doesn't matter,
directed towards
just
pedestrians.
for reference, because I can have some questions.
Sure.
So as we're looking at it now, the bottom left blue marker, that appears to be in a straight line for the building and also where the drive-throughs are. Is that accurate? If I'm looking from top to bottom of your document.
Yeah, it follows the crosswalks.
Okay. And the point is that some of us looked at this materials earlier this week, but we can't get to it. We can't get to the diagrams right now. So the cut that you're talking about is the one closest to the first left blue on the document. Is that the cut that you're talking about? That's the new cut?
Correct. That's the new curb cut.
Why did you design it so closely to the larger, very confusing intersection as opposed to moving it, either not even having it or moving it further down?
That was sort of the best way we could lay out the site to provide good separation between the Chick-fil-A and the Barnes & Noble. I don't know if you had any more to add to that.
Sure, yeah, I think, sorry, Joey again with Bowler. I think it's a factor of really just getting guests to identifying where the drive-through entrance is. We certainly didn't want to have guests traveling in front of the Barnes & Noble, heading down the parking area and then entering the drive-through, trying to provide a direct access to the drive-through from the interior streets here, interior Ring Road, to get guests into the site and into the drive-through as quick as possible and not be sending traffic in front of Barnes & Noble.
So did you have a traffic study out there on a regular busy day determining how many vehicles will be going through that intersection?
Yes.
And what were the hours that you were doing that study?
1 second. So we did parking counts some days, and we also did
I'm talking about not parking
traffic counts. We did specifically Thursday in November
What time, please?
from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., as well as a Saturday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Okay. If you take a look at the diagram that we have now, we go to what is the building on the far right. That's the Barnes & Noble building. Do you see that in the diagram?
Yes.
And that's a very large area between the building and the first parking, probably 30, 40 feet. Would that be a fair assessment?
From the building to the first row parking?
Yes, sir.
Sure.
How many feet? Did you actually measure it?
I don't have the exact
Fair, no
measurement,
problem,
but
no
approximately 30 feet. So.
But then if you go all the way up to the top where you have your marker indicating with the north compass point, there's again another large, wide area that would go to your drive-through lane, correct?
Are you referencing the top
Take
right
the left,
corner of the page?
take the left, go by the Barnes & Noble building to as far as you can, then you take your next, if you, no, we're talking about the same.
Oh. What are you trying to get to? Oh.
That's not what we're looking at. I was looking at a different diagram.
That's the Barnes & Noble.
I understand that, but if you can go back to the earlier diagram we were talking about.
Sure.
Thank you. Makes a lot more sense to take no new cuts, but have one cut that goes through the difference between Barnes and Noble and the parking lot. Your vehicle's gonna go all the way guided down to the point where they're gonna take the left and go right into your lane. And you're not gonna cause any additional walkway problems, crossing problems, if you only have one cut. Did you consider that?
I can certainly speak to my client and see if they would consider that. I just want to understand what you're saying. You're saying
It just
no
seems that it
new
makes
cut,
no,
just
it
to
makes no
use-
sense the way you're doing this cut. You're cutting it in a very tough intersection where people are coming and going, and that's what doesn't make sense to me. That's what I'm talking about.
Sure.
And then the other thing, we'll get away from that. What other parts of the property did you consider to use because of this real problem at this intersection? What other parts of the property did you look at to possibly place this Chick-fil-A at?
I'm not sure what would be available in the leasing. I would have to refer to
Okay.
John, maybe.
Do you understand the requirements of 5.1.4.1 subparagraph 3 regarding drive-throughs in our zoning regulations?
And the requirements of how many cars are needed in the lane?
Yeah.
Yes.
And are you familiar with the administrative summary from today regarding
I am.
that?
I have it
And
here.
the planner's position is that you're not compliant with the zoning regulations.
I can say in terms of the drive-through queuing, in terms of the code that was referenced in the review comments, we do meet the 10-car waiting position minimum, and we also meet the 2-car waiting position after the ordering area.
Okay, I'm going to go to the last area then. Why are we taking so many parking spots away? You're not you appear to be not in compliance with the zoning regulations because there's not enough parking spots in that one area for your restaurant, if it's approved, and Barnes and Noble.
I believe we're meeting the code for the overall center, but the layout of the building, the layout of the drive-through facilitated a certain number of stalls to be removed, and the way this building laid out, and to accommodate that dual-lane drive-through on either side, it was necessary to lose this number of stalls.
Okay, I really appreciate your presentation. It's just, we're trying to deal with some internet issues to bring up the documents, and that's why I had not actually until just now, tonight, seen that document because we weren't able to get to it. But thank you very much, and I appreciate your comments. Nothing at this point, Mr. Chair.
I just have a couple of things I'd like you to consider. Consider a scenario where a car comes in and it has a little trailer, like a U-Haul, and how that, or a boat trailer, for that matter, how that affects the turning radius. And again, I'm not asking for individual responses, just sort of consider a couple of scenarios. If you have somebody who is coming into the site and somebody from the parking area is leaving the site, and I'm just thinking that there's a confusion not a confusion, but there's going to be a little bit of a bottleneck when people are leaving the parking area and they're meeting with people leaving the drive-through, and then there are people that will be coming in from the drive aisle, potentially taking a left into the parking that's directly at the building. It just seems that the way this is set up, it's going to be kind of a bottleneck. So that's just a thought. I don't think you can say anything that will change that. It just is what I see as being a common occurrence. That's just what I feel is going to be there. So those are just a couple of comments to share.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. The biggest problem that I can see is you are taking those spaces away from Barnes and Noble. It makes them not zoning compliant. And it seems if you could just move it to the other side of that access road, which would be at the bottom of that illustration right there, or some other place. I mean, how heavily was that considered? Because to me, this seems like kind of a tough spot.
The suggestion is moving the building someplace else? I just want to understand.
Yeah, that spot that you've picked out.
I can't speak to what was available in the leasing negotiations or anything like that. I'm not sure if that was space that was available, perhaps it was Walmart's lease area, and I'm not sure if that was an option.
Okay, so you don't have an answer for that, okay.
If you guys want to answer that? Yeah.
I think that, to be honest, this was the space that was available when we were initially, when Chick-fil-A was initially looking at the site that was, working with the landlord team. This was the only location that was available to us. We were trying to, make the program work not only for Chick-fil-A, but also make it work for the overall plaza as well. To some of the comments that we're hearing regarding that entrance there, one of the things we wanted to be sensitive to was Barnes & Noble. We didn't want to send all the traffic in front of their door. They're going to have customers, entering the building, leaving the building. We didn't want to send drive-through traffic and even just dine-in resident traffic, dine-in customer traffic through, directly in front of Barnes & Noble. And that was, the intent of the additional curb cut, to then remove kind of that bottleneck condition within this small parking area. There's also cross-parking agreements throughout this plaza as well. So while we are removing some parking in here, there is shared parking throughout this overall larger, plaza complex here as well. So.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, to me, it's a little troubling, safety for the pedestrians, and the comments earlier by the other board members for the radius and whatnot. So, thank you. You've answered my question.
And those comments were certainly heard by the design team, just as we're presenting tonight, some of the pedestrian improvements that are here. Right, currently there aren't many, ways for, pedestrian, connectivity between even the Barnes & Noble site and the mall. And I think that's part of our proposal here with the Chick-fil-A, is to kind of introduce more of that pedestrian connection here and have these crosswalks to allow customers to, park off site and still be able to make it to the, and still head into the building.
Thank you. If you have further presentation, we can continue and then have further questions, and it is a public hearing. So once you say that you're done, then we will ask the board for any questions or comments, have David weigh in, and then open a public hearing.
Sure, just wanted to share a last slide here. Again, just the building renderings here for the building. I think this certainly addresses, I believe, some of the comments regarding the stonework on portions of the site here. I think that was established early on during the review process here. So certainly wanted to just share elevations of the building and the renderings that the architects had prepared for this, also showing some of the building signage as well. So that being said, I think that does conclude our presentation. Certainly here to answer any questions that you all might have, any more questions you all might have.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, David, if you would give your overview, and then we'll open up the public hearing, and then we'll come back to the board for questions.
Yeah, I have just one question, and then I can do my administrative summary. There was a lot of emphasis this evening on pedestrian connections and kind of going up the driveway and the bus stop. As I'm staring at the map of the property and see where the bus stop is, was there any consideration given to take the much shorter route and go across the front area, the landscape area, with a nice landscape walkway that would then enter the property and get to either Barnes & Noble or Chick-fil-A or the rest of the plaza?
Yeah, so I do know that there is a pretty substantial slope from Boston Post Road to this site, because I know initially we were looking at, this is many years back, some additional pedestrian connectivity, and that was one of the limiting factors, is where the drive-through is located, there is a pretty substantial slope as you head down towards Boston Post Road.
How big is that slope? I'm pulling up the, let's see, I see 31. I see, let's see here. Trying to pull up your topo here. I mean, we'll take your word at the moment for that, but...
I can also confirm that as well.
That there's when you say significant, what do you mean by that?
Yeah. We'll certainly take a look at that,
okay.
And we'll get back to you regarding some of those elevation changes there.
Thank you.
The very last thing I want to add is that we appreciate the comments regarding, the Barnes & Noble parking two things to keep in mind. Ethan did say that based upon his counts, there is sufficient parking for Barnes & Noble customers and also the Chick-fil-A customers, and Barnes & Noble has given their consent. So certainly, we're concerned about the Barnes & Noble clients, but also Barnes & Noble has the greatest interest in making sure their people can get into their store safely, and they have signed off and given their consent with this layout. So happy to answer any other questions.
Do you have that in writing from Barnes & Noble?
We'll get it for you.
Thank you.
Okay. My staff review. The application is a special exception with site plan and CAM to establish a fast food restaurant with drive-through service. The application is a special exception because the SCD Shopping Center Design District doesn't specifically allow for a drive-through restaurant service or prohibit it. Allowing a drive-through service is a discretionary action by the board. The applicant is proposing to construct a new fast food restaurant of 5,097 square feet in size. A proposed two-lane drive-through is shown. Not in my report, but typically when this board has approved drive-throughs, and you'll see that in probably every drive-through in the city, there's always a bypass lane. It's not part of our regulations, but it's good design. That's not being shown here. There's no bypass lane. The applicant needs to demonstrate that a 10-car waiting position, one in each lane, exists before the ordering window, or in the case, the fast food delivery, or in this case, food delivery area, since food is walked out to the car after ordering, and 2 waiting positions after the ordering area per 5.1.4.1 subsection 3. The existing parking area consists of 187 parking spaces, where 125 are required for the existing Barnes & Noble retail building of 31,145 square feet at 1 space per 250 square feet, yielding an extra 62 spaces. With the proposed construction of the restaurant taking up space in the existing parking area, the additional 62 spaces is reduced to 0, and an actual parking shortage is introduced for the 2 specific uses on the development site. Keep in mind that when this plaza was developed, each pad or development site was made zoning compliant in terms of parking and acted independently on their own with the ability to use other parking in the plaza because it's under, the management of a plaza. But that was a typical Ceruzzi process for all of the plazas that he designed. There was a development site, that's the pad, with its associated parking. This plaza was no different. Parking is proposed to be split for both at Chick-fil-A and Barnes & Noble between the existing development site and across the internal roadway onto the Walmart development site. For Barnes & Noble, 55 on-site parking spaces are provided, with 14 provided on the Walmart parcel, for a total of 69 dedicated spots where 125 are required. For Chick-fil-A, the new Chick-fil-A building, 5,097 square feet, requires 68 parking spaces at 1 per 75. 40 on-site parking spaces are provided, with 25 spots on the Walmart parcel that will be designated for Chick-fil-A employees, for a total of 65 spaces, where 68 spaces are required. 2 proposed crosswalks are proposed, one with a blinking light, to facilitate crossing the internal roadway from the development site, Chick-fil-A and Barnes & Noble, to the Walmart site. The overall shopping center currently contains 1,850 parking spaces, which are proposed to be reduced to 1,768 spaces, which exceeds the minimum required parking for the entire shopping center of 1,667 spaces, with the Chick-fil-A and crosswalk-related site improvements. The board may allow multiple uses located on the same lot to share parking per section 5.18. The board may want to determine if the proposed configuration with parking on either side of the main internal driveway is safe and acceptable and a reasonable accommodation for the customer's employees to use. 7 EV charging stations are proposed to be added to the development site parking lot. the applicant needs to declare the type of charging unit per section 5.1.10.9 and needs to show how they determine that the number of chargers provided is 10% of the development site parking area. The development site is 98 spaces, and the 10% is a zoning requirement. No bike racks are provided for the restaurant. Bike rack should be provided since residential neighborhoods easily can access this site from Rhodes's Mill Road and Avalon Drive. The utility plans show conduits for EV, should show utility conduits for EV chargers and the site lighting. A number of trees are being removed along the Boston Post Road to be replaced with shorter shrubs. It's not clear how many of the existing trees are impacted by the construction versus how many are being removed just to increase the visibility of the building. The applicant should be required to plant new shade trees in accordance with 5.14.4, subsection 2, along the Boston Post Road for the development parcel. Only one maple shade tree is proposed to be added to Boston Post Road frontage. The applicant should show how the outdoor seating is protected from vehicular intrusion. The proposed fencing design detail for the patio should also be provided. The purpose of the proposed pedestrian crosswalk from the accessible parking spaces to the landscape island in the development lot area should be explained. That's an area that's close to the entrance to the drive-through. There's a walkway and a pedestrian crosswalk going to a landscaped island that seems to just go to the landscape island. No adverse impacts to coastal resources are anticipated with this proposal.
At this point, this is a public hearing. I would, without objection, open it up to the public for comment.
My name is Teresa Eek. I live at 47 Point Beach Drive. Thank you all very much for all of your hard work and due diligence. Aside from the reputation that Chick-fil-A has, I wanted to laugh just because of how close Cane's Chicken is that's opening up in the former Milford Bank, and that it sounds like this is taking away parking. And I know we talk a lot about how important parking is, and people talk about that to prevent housing. So I'm thinking, okay, well, this is a commercial establishment. They should have sufficient parking. That seems to be an issue. So, you know, I'm not against businesses in Milford, but we got a lot of chicken places. So I just wanted to put that out there, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Are there any?
Hi, Sarah Bromley, 27 Norway Street in Milford. To echo a little bit what Teresa was just saying, when I was here for Raising Cane's application, I was like, okay, great, sounds good, something different. I like different things, different options, different diversity of foods, even though it's chicken, right? A lot of chicken. At last count, we have within probably 5-mile radius, we have 4 Popeyes. We have Raising Cane's coming now, KFC, Dave's Hot Chicken, Haven Hot Chicken, Buffalo Wild Wings, Chick-fil-A, and actually the Chick-fil-A that's just 5 miles away in West Haven. It's just baffling. And at the same time, when I'm driving from here to work, I'm only 7 minutes away, I see restaurants closing. And I know that it's great, like brings in, great for the economy, business, right? Brings in new jobs and taxes, right? But I'm thinking, well, the jobs it brings in, they're not the jobs that pay very much, that aren't really gonna be the jobs that we can live on, that our kids and ourselves can live on. So that was one concern I have. And yeah, fun fact, I don't know if this is really true, but when I was thinking, I was looking hey, why are there 2 Chick-fil-A's so close? Apparently, they can be really close. They could be one in the mall and one out in the mall parking lot. So that's not a big deal, right? And I don't know if this is true, right? But if it's true that in their franchise agreement, the stores have to be 45,900 34 chicken nuggets apart in distance. Okay, that was just a little funny, sorry. I'll stop trying to be funny. Because I also was reading about how a community can experience negative impacts from having too many fast food restaurants. I know where I came from in Kentucky, small town, and it was just one strip of fast food restaurants. And my dad died of eating too much fast food, basically. So some of the concerns I have about that is that too many fast food restaurants is that, well, on a business level, you can have apparently market saturation and competition. When you have a high density of similar fast food restaurants, you're saturated. And what if the supply exceeds consumer demand? We like chicken right now. How long are we going to like chicken? Could intensify competition among the businesses, potentially eroding their profit margins and making it harder for them to thrive. Boston Market's gone, On the Border's gone. Those are TGI Fridays are gone. Lots of restaurants are struggling, and maybe not fast food, but it seems like new fast food, according to Cadence and Lark, new fast food chains can struggle to differentiate themselves and survive in a crowded market. So it could be exciting to have something come in new, but what if it's too much chicken? What if all of our neighbors can't afford to eat at Chick-fil-A as often as they'd like to? I just think about some things like that. And what do we need to be known for? Also, my family, I texted my daughter to tell her this, and she's in Barnes & Noble like twice a week. She has a severe problem with, buying too many books. But
All right, well,
time to go,
we're
right?
about at our 3 minutes, so thank you for your thoughts.
So she's very concerned about the traffic for Barnes & Noble.
Thank you. Any further comments from the public? Would you care to rebut?
Yes, thanks. For the record, John Nuff. Actually, we're not closing tonight. This is a special exception, so we need a supermajority of the entire board, not just those who are sitting here. We promised to give you some other information, and we'll obviously be back to do that. We did want to respond to a couple of different things. I think Joey has a response on some things. I think David's comment about having parking sufficient for each of these, sort of sub-parcels. I think the strategy behind that was so that if Ceruzzi wanted to subdivide it, he could. But yes, the overall site does comply with your parking requirements. I appreciate David for pointing that out. I think Joey's going to tell you about the pass-by lane because, he's designed, dozens, scores of Chick-fil-A's, and maybe has more experience with this than anyone. And obviously, Chick-fil-A has an abundance of experience literally throughout the world. Other companies come to them to help them with their efficiency. And that applies to the pass-by lane as well. So I'm just going to have Joey respond about that and the landscaping, and then obviously with regard to other chicken restaurants, zoning doesn't pick winners and losers. The market will do that, but obviously again, Chick-fil-A, Raising Cane, they're all very sophisticated corporate entities, and they know what they're doing, and they know how to be successful, and obviously that is not impacting their desire to be here. So, Joey.
Just go to site plan. So just regarding the bypass lane, just to educate on the drive-through process that Chick-fil-A has, and a lot of this again is based on what we learned from COVID, from 2020, and the drive-throughs that they had. So the prior prototypes had a single lane entrance to their drive-throughs that went to 2 lanes to ordering, merged down to a single lane to the order, and that's typically how the prior proto was. With these dual lanes, and I mentioned it before in my presentation, but it gives the operators flexibility to use the 2 lanes if needed during peak times, but also use it as a single lane via lighting on the canopy to alert customers that lane 1 is open and lane 2 is closed. For instance, their operating times are 6:30 a.m. to 10 p.m. Breakfast isn't as popular up here as it is down south. If there are customers that are going there to grab their breakfast, they're going to be operating under a single lane. So customer was going to enter that inside lane, going to order at the order board, it's going to pick up at the pickup window. That outside lane is going to act as a bypass lane. There's going to be no vehicles within there because the operator is just opening that single lane during, and that could be the case up until, you know, their peak time during lunchtime, and that timing can range from location to location. But when they are running their peak times and they do have the 2 lanes being operated on, there are team members out in the drive-through lane that are taking multiple orders at a time. If you've been to one, you've seen them out there with iPads. They're taking multiple orders, also taking payment, and then as the customers proceed to the pickup window/door, there are team members, you know, there could be up to 4 team members there also delivering meals to those customers. So the fact that we don't have a separate, which I would call a third lane for a bypass, the reason for the dual lane, it gives the operator the flexibility to have that outside lane act as a bypass during off-peak. During peak, if there was an incident within the drive-through and customers did need to leave and exit, there are team members within the drive-through lane that will just direct traffic out, park in the parking lot, deliver their meals. If there's a vehicle that's having an emergency, they'll be able to exit the drive-through, and then the operation will resume as previously stated. So, as I said before, that during off-peak times, which can happen multiple times during the day, it will be a single lane operation. That outside lane will be unused and be acting as a bypass. So just a quick summary on how the drive-through operation will work here. Regarding the EV parks, I'll connect with our team on that. I know that I believe we're showing the minimum requirement for EV. I believe they're type 2 chargers. We'll have that confirmed, and we'll certainly get back to you all on that. The landscaping, I know the landscape plan was also provided along with the table that showed the zoning codes that were compliant on there, and I believe when I quickly looked at the landscape plan prior to the hearing, I believe all of that was code compliant. Again, we'll take another look at it. If there's an additional shade tree that's required there, you know, we'll certainly look at where we can provide that, but I believe it was a code compliant landscape plan that was submitted. I think that was really for some of the high level comments that I had taken on there, so happy to answer
Thank you.
any other questions.
And so I understand that you want to keep this open and put it on the agenda for the next available slot.
Correct. I mean, primarily for 2 reasons. One, we owe you some information, and 2, we want to make sure there's a full complement of
Okay, and there is the possibility that you won't have it ever. You know, people go on vacation in the summer and stuff.
Understood, I know.
Just a couple of comments, so you just remind you that whatever Barnes & Noble said in writing, we have that.
Yeah.
Also, we talked about the geometry, and I think that this is a perfect opportunity to fix that kind of dysfunctional transition between the drive aisle and the access to the post road. I think that the drive aisle should be moved to the south by at least 20 feet and create a different shape for that sort of double pad site. My feeling that would eliminate a lot of what I see as potential dysfunction. But you guys will come back. You may have the same proposal. You may have, some adjustments. If there's any comments from the board at this point, then we will make those comments, and then we will, push this off till the next meeting. Mr. Sadie.
Thank you. Good evening, Attorney Nuff. One of the thoughts that I saw, we're able to get a map. We can't get our documents up, but if you're looking north at the Barnes & Noble, there's actually a second cut that goes behind the Barnes & Noble that might assist that. Just throwing that out.
Yeah, so I believe that's the truck delivery access for Barnes & Noble back there. I think that's the reason for what that ring road is behind the Barnes & Noble, so that is just for truck access.
I understand that. I don't know how, if we could change it at all. I just saw it, that's all. Thank you very much, though.
Eton.
I have a question for Attorney Nuff. You're indicating you're going to speak with a representative from Barnes & Noble on what issue exactly?
to demonstrate that they are aware and they have consented to this design. Because I understand that, there's been some comments about concern about Barnes & Noble customers having convenient access to the store. If Barnes & Noble is not concerned about that, then I think that goes a long way in sort of calming some of those fears. And it wouldn't surprise me that Barnes & Noble might think that maybe it'll improve their customer base by having Chick-fil-A there. So that's the purpose.
All right. Can Barnes & Noble consent to a site plan that we believe violates the Milford zoning regulations?
Well, no, we don't violate the regulations. We have more than sufficient parking over on the entire site. I think what David was referring to is that when it was approved, 1990 something, maybe early 2000s, what Ceruzzi did, it was a very successful developer, created enough parking on each of those subsections so that if they wanted to subdivide and sell off a parcel, they could do that. So that resulted in a dramatically overparked piece of land. Overparked, having too many parking spaces doesn't really do anyone any good. What it does is it minimizes the taxes that you pay because you pay taxes on the buildings, not on the parking. So there was it was purely a economic, strategic approach that Ceruzzi took. I'm not belittling it, it was smart, but I want to be very clear. We comply with the parking requirements. David's memo is very clear because under your regulations, we're allowed to park on the entirety of the site. There are no condominiums here, there are no separate parcels. This is one overall large parcel, and your parking requirements say you must provide X number of spaces on that parcel, and we exceed that number with this design. And so no, Barnes & Noble could not consent to a zoning violation, but we don't have a zoning violation, is to just put people's minds at ease that they are not concerned about their customers accessing their building.
Any further questions at this point, or shall we send this to the next meeting? David, anything you'd like to close with? Okay, thank you all for your time and effort and your presentation, and we will see you next time.